Here's the harsh reality. Nobody is going to advocate for you more than you advocate for yourself. Nobody is going to try and push you for that promotion, for that job, for that relationship, unless you are the one to take yourself in that direction first. Unless you are the one to stand there and say, I deserve this. This is what I want. Welcome back to Organized Chaos. My name is Regan, and I am so very happy that you are here. Make sure you pull up a chair, you get comfy, you get cozy, whether you're on a walk outside, because we all know we need to get outside more often, and it is summer, and it is so gorgeous, or you're waking up in the morning and doing your skincare routine. We are going to dive deep into the thoughts and feelings that I have going on in my head, and a lot of what I have learned over the course of my life around anxiety and mental health and self-love to help you live the life that you want to live and be happy doing it. This episode is really about how can you support yourself and stand up for yourself so that you can set boundaries with people, slow down your people-pleasing tendencies, because you know we all have them, and make sure that you are standing up for yourself and speaking your mind in ways that maybe you weren't taught to do when you were younger. Especially as women, we are told so often by society to stay quiet, to not speak our mind. If she's a loud woman, she's not someone we want to work with. She's a bitch. She doesn't care about other people. She doesn't have empathy. She's not compassionate. And instead, men, when they do the same exact thing, if they say, I want this job, I want to get paid this much money, I want to do this thing, it's thought of as, oh, they're ambitious, they're excited, they're passionate, they're a leader. And those were the words that I was often met with when I was younger, the ones used to describe women. I was the one who would walk into a room and say, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to do it. And I was bossy. Whereas when my brother did the same exact thing, he was considered intelligent and showed leadership capabilities. When at the end of the day, as kids, we were just advocating for ourselves. And even as adults, when we were called those names, we're just advocating for ourselves. All we're saying is, hey, I don't agree with what's happening here, and this is how I expect you to treat me. Advocating for yourself should not be considered a dirty word. Here's the harsh reality. The opportunities that should be given to you, those ones that you have in your mind that you really, really want to see yourself achieve, they should be given to you. But unless you ask for them, they're probably not going to be given to you. That is just not the way the world works. When I was younger, I was taught if I put my head down and I work really hard, the opportunities I deserve will come my way. How do you explain the promotions I wasn't given, the raises I wasn't given, the relationships I wanted to be but didn't end up being in? Now, I don't regret any of those things because they got me here. They got me to this moment. And to be fair, I love the life that I am living. But it would have saved me a huge amount of heartache if I had truly understood the value of speaking my mind, the value of speaking up, because you will not get what you want until you are ready to speak up. But in order to do that, it takes that self-confidence. It takes the knowledge and understanding of yourself, the way you react, why you react certain ways. It takes being able to express yourself in a compassionate and empathetic way, but also sets really strong boundaries with people so that they understand the rules that you're setting out around the way that you expect to be treated. It also takes you upholding those boundaries and not backing down when they are truly, truly important to you. In one of my very first jobs, I had a manager and a mentor who taught me something that I have taken with me through every single job, opportunity, relationship, moment in my life. And I want you to walk away with the same exact thing. Nobody is going to advocate for you as much as you advocate for yourself. What that means is nobody is going to try and push you for that promotion, for that job, for that relationship, unless you are the one to take yourself in that direction first. Unless you are the one to stand there and say, I deserve this. This is what I want. Because people often will wait. People rarely take a step out of their own comfort zone to help somebody else unless they are pushed to do so in the first place. So what is advocating for yourself and what does it mean? Because we have to look at what it really means before we can get to how you can start to advocate for yourself. At the core, advocating for yourself is showing yourself the respect that you deserve. I talk about respect and love a huge amount because I truly, truly believe it's at the core of some of our biggest struggles. That self-respect, that self-knowledge, that self-confidence, that self-love. If we don't have those foundations in place, it's really hard to build on top of it. If I don't believe that I am worth the promotion, if I don't believe that I am worth that extra bit, that extra bump, that extra bonus, when I go and ask for it, that confidence will not seep through. If I type an email to someone that says, hey, just wondering if we were still having that meeting to talk about the promotion, that sounds so different than, hey, making sure we're still on for next Tuesday at 12, looking forward to having the conversation with you. People are always going to try to take the out where you give it to them, so don't give it to them. My mom always taught me, you take the presumptive close. You tell people what you believe and how you believe it, and it is their job, it is their responsibility to turn back around and tell you what they believe in return. So stop trying to read people's minds. Advocating for yourself takes imposter syndrome and puts it to the side. That's not to say I never feel imposter syndrome. I feel imposter syndrome every day. I feel it right now while I'm recording this video because I want to give you all of these different caveats of how I haven't done this in the past and how I could have done it better. But at the end of the day, the point is we're trying. The point is we're being intentional about the way we're living our lives. And that, my friend, is self-respect. Imagine you're with a group of friends and all of a sudden they start talking about going on a trip somewhere, but you sit there and you're like, until I'm invited, I'm going to assume that I am not invited to go along with them. Well, now you two are probably coming from very different directions. So why don't you ask? Why don't you say, I'd like to go with you? Insert yourself into that conversation. All too often, we start to try and read people's minds. We start to put too much power in someone else's hands. The likelihood is, it's not that they don't want you to come, it's that they don't think they need to mention that they do want you to come. Unless you have someone who is so empathetic and so tuned in or really, really highly sensitive, it's very rare that they're going to give you all of those verbal communication pieces that you really need to feel most comfortable. So why don't you start asking for it? If you're not sure how someone else thinks, feels, or is perceiving you, ask. Try to get clarity around the situation before you make those assumptions. Since when do we put all that value and that worth in someone else's hands? Our value and our worth is determined from who we are, how we feel about ourselves on the inside. How is anyone supposed to know how you feel if you don't tell them? At home, at work, it doesn't matter. If you are not willing to tell your partner how you feel, you cannot expect them to be able to read your mind. But telling them how you feel means you need to believe in what you're asking for. And a lot of believing yourself, a lot of not gaslighting yourself, a lot of advocating for yourself comes from that self-confidence. And that self-confidence comes from the trust within yourself that you know what you want, that you know the direction you're heading, and you know, even if it's not right 100% of the time, you can pivot when you need to, and you trust yourself to support you throughout every single step in your life. We become so obsessed with what other people are thinking about us that we forget to separate ourselves from them and really build and start living the life that we want to live. Their opinions of us only matter as much as the worth we give it. When you advocate for yourself, when you start asking for what you need, when you start telling people what you want and where you want to go, you are taking control of your own life and your own happiness. You're not letting other people dictate how you feel or what you do. You are showing yourself that you value your needs, that you value you. That is going to lead to more self-confidence, higher levels of self-esteem, more self-love, a more relaxed state of being. Now that's all well and good, but how do we actually practice advocating for ourselves? Because like I said in one of my previous episodes about the concept of productivity and how I'm redefining my relationship with it, vulnerability is hard, and a lot of this is vulnerable. Setting a boundary with somebody is vulnerable. Asking for something we want, but we are not sure that someone else is going to give us, is vulnerable. But it is such a necessary part of life and honestly adulthood. It has been a huge learning as I've moved through my adult life that no one is going to give you what you want unless you ask for it. You will of course come across those people in life that are just an incredible support system for you, and you want to keep those people as close as possible. For the large majority, people are so obsessed with what they're doing. They're so obsessed with what's going on in their own life that they're honestly just not going to think about you, not because they don't care about you, not because they're being naive, not because they're being mean or rude or self-obsessed, because we're all so focused on ourselves that it's really hard to step outside of that. So for example, your manager, the one who you trust to go and advocate for you on behalf of your raise or your promotion, probably is thinking about their own raise and promotion before they're thinking about your own. And that shift has been so helpful for me when I think about advocating for myself and when I think about the concept of imposter syndrome. When I go into conversations with other people, I'm no longer thinking about it as, oh, this person's not going to want to help me. Instead, I think about it as, how can I make this a yes? How do I make it so hard for them to say no to me? How do I make it so easy for them to say yes? When I led teams in corporate, this is how I would approach every single conversation and encourage my team to do the same exact thing. How do you make a no really hard to get? And how do you make it a yes super easy? Because until we do that, until we lay it out for them, we make it really hard for them to go to their manager, to their lead, to their boss and say, hey, this person on my team wants a raise and promotion, and so do I. But if you say, these are all the things that I've done and you've helped me accomplish, and this is all the good that I've done on your team, they get to turn right around and say the same exact thing to their leader, but you've given them this script. And while we don't want to do other people's work for them, it means that we're getting closer to the goals that we want to achieve. So fine. Advocating for yourself doesn't always mean you're asking for something. Sometimes you mean you're asking for it not to happen. A couple weeks ago, I talked about the concept of authenticity and the concept of vulnerability and how scary that can be sometimes. And it's scary because we connect with other people. We want other people to like us, and that is a totally admirable trait. But those boundaries that we are putting in place are a mechanism for us to respect ourselves. It's a mechanism for us to show other people how we should be treated. And so in the same way you should be asking other people for what you want, you also need to be telling people what you do not want. And those boundaries are important because if you're realizing that that raise or that promotion isn't really within reach right now, but you're working overtime and working yourself to the bone and not setting boundaries and burning out really without even getting closer to your own goals or heading in a different direction than what your own goals are, maybe you just need to start looking at how you can set some boundaries in place so that you maintain your peace, protect your peace, and make sure that you're supporting yourself in a way that you wish other people supported you too. And if you have a hard time with boundaries, let's start super small. Let's slowly start to trickle boundaries in, whether that's saying no to a meeting, telling a friend that you need space, telling a friend that you can't go to something anymore. Whatever it is, make sure that you are clear and concise in your communication and you're not waffling, because it can be really difficult for people to hear what we're trying to say. If one friend asks you, hey, do you want to come and hang out this weekend? And you say, oh, I think that I could maybe hang out, but I'm not sure. I'm going to have to come back around and see if I actually have plans already. That is not going to fly when it comes to advocating for yourself. What is going to fly is you saying, I already have plans on Saturday, but thanks so much for inviting me. That is all you need to say. We often think that we need to give people more information than is necessary. But at the end of the day, all you need to say is, no, thank you. People can choose to respond in the way that they're going to respond on their own. You don't need to be responsible for their feelings and emotions. And the last thing that I'll talk about is building your confidence muscle. And that can be starting super, super small and just asking for things, negotiating, correcting someone in a conversation. Again, we do this with kindness and we do this with compassion, but it's not a bad thing to tell someone, this is how I feel, or this is how I think. Building this confidence muscle is going to require you to step away from other people's opinion, what their reaction is going to be. Try not to predict their immediate reaction. When you start to do that, when you get obsessed with this person's going to be mad, or they're not going to like it, or they're going to be upset, you start to take responsibility for someone else's emotions, and we don't need to do that. Not everyone is going to like you. People are going to be upset with any decision that you make, big or small. So why not go and live the life that you want to live instead of being so worried about what someone else thinks about you all the time? One way that I love to build my self-confidence is by sitting and repeating I am statements to myself. I am confident. I'm convincing my brain that I am confident. I'm telling my brain that I am confident so that when it starts to doubt it, it can hear me again in the back as a subconscious reminder that I am confident, I am capable, I am kind, I am compassionate, I am here, I am safe. Safety is such an important piece for me when it comes to advocating for myself. Anytime I have a big conversation with somebody, I sit down beforehand and I think to myself, I am safe. I am here. I am in my body. I ground myself. Because if we've had experiences before where someone has reacted so negatively to a boundary we've set, or so negatively in a way that we feel unsafe when we've shared our opinion, that is going to trickle through to every other interaction we have when we try to set a boundary in the future. Remember, Rome was not built in a day. All of this comes slowly, but it will definitely come. One day you will wake up and advocating for yourself, feeling confident, that self-love will just be second nature to you. Advocating for yourself is a gradual process. It's not all going to come in one day, but by using these tips and using this advice, I hope you can get one step closer to really seeing your dream life play out right before your eyes. Now, if you're doing all that and you're still saying to yourself, I just don't feel safe enough in order to set these boundaries quite yet, well, let's take your stress levels down. Let's get you to a point where you do feel safe enough to start this work, because this work is hard. This work is really vulnerable. Make sure you check out my video on self-care and the different tips that I use every single day to help me fall back in love with myself, because that's the way that I feel safe enough and grounded enough to start setting boundaries, to start advocating for myself, and start having some of these conversations that can kind of shake you up a little bit. But if those foundations are in place, if you feel like your stress levels are lowered and you're at a nice equilibrium and feeling confident in who you are, then I guarantee you'll be able to take one step closer to seeing all of this play out in front of you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Regan, and this has been another episode of Organized Chaos. I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.